Hi, everybody. Nice to be here today. My name is Cheryl Whitaker, and I am a head of learning and talent executive. Spent the majority of my career in the financial services space, and I'm just really, really excited to be here with Growth Space today. So.
Well, thrilled to have you. So we'll just dive right in. What's your funny or embarrassing story that you brought for us today?
Oh, you know what? This one stressed me out, Karen, trying to think about something that would actually be appropriate to share. Because trust me, there have been a lot. But my career started out. I wasn't always in the talent and HR space. I started out as a leader in claims, working for State Farm Insurance. And back in the day, we used to hold quite large claims conferences. And I remember there was this one time where I went to this claims conference, and it was primarily for leadership, this particular one out in the Poconos. And don't ask me why, but for entertainment, they used to hire hypnotists. And so, yeah, it's so crazy. So because I just love to have fun, I thought it was kind of cool. I volunteered to be one of 10 participants that they put up on the stage to be hypnotized, and all these different kind of crazy and fun things started to happen. But I don't know if you've ever watched this kind of thing happen before, and the hypnotist will say like, okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you're asleep. And you wonder, are you really asleep? But I've got to tell you, you're awake, but your brain for some reason follows the suggestion to be asleep. And so I was sitting next to on stage, sitting next to, I didn't know him, but he was like a big time executive from corporate who came down for the conference. And when they said sleep, I went to sleep right on his shoulder. Like everyone else fell asleep like this. Not me. I fell asleep. I kind of like leaned over. And not only did I lean over on his shoulder, but I kind of felt my head starting to snuggle a little bit. And the worst part is that I was conscious enough to know I was doing it, realized that he was probably conscious enough to know that I was doing it, and neither one of us could move. Oh my God, it was absolutely horrible. And you could hear everybody laughing, joking around, because this guy was like a real kind of like serious kind of dude. But anyway, so we went through it, and all kind of crazy things happened. One woman, they made her think that she didn't have her shoes on, and she was walking around in the crowd asking everybody, "Where are my shoes? Where are my shoes?" And they're like, it's on your feet." And she's like rolling her eyes, and we're all laughing and stuff. But at the end of the day, I will just never ever forget just being the warmth of that gentleman's shoulder, and then all of the razzing that we took from the leadership team for the rest of that conference. It was
But
crazy.
I guarantee you, he has never forgotten about you. Like that's how you make an impression with an executive.
I know. And the funny thing, I can't even remember his name for the life of me, thinking about the story. I was trying to remember his name. I can't remember it right now, but if he's out there listening, if you remember me, thanks for the warm shoulder.
Amazing. Oh my God.
Uh,
Would you ever do that again? Would you ever be hypnotized
yes,
again?
I would. I
Oh,
would. Yeah, they say it's the best sleep of your life, like that night after being hypnotized, and it really was. I had a great night's sleep. I still remember that part. Yeah, it was cool. It was fun.
oh my God. Every conversation we have, you leave me in stitches and I always learn something. So I'm really excited
Aw,
to learn more with you.
thank
And
you.
let's start by talking me through, I think everyone has that success story, that thing they hang their hat on. There's something, a program that they're just so proud of, that maybe worked against the odds or did something like gangbusters. Why don't you share with us what your major success in your career has been in terms of developing programs?
Oh, okay. So gave this one a lot of thought, and it's interesting because I've just been blessed with um, being able to participate and work with incredibly talented leaders and designers and teams putting together some fantastic stuff for our learners out there. But when I think about what really started it all, wow, going back 10 years now, we're in 2024, right? Yep. So 10 years ago, I was the head of claims learning, global head of claims learning for AIG. And at that time, digital learning was not a thing. It was really, I mean, if we had to train a class of learners out in Singapore, someone from my team would actually get on a plane and fly to Singapore in order to get this done. I mean, seems kind of crazy now, but the expense, it just wasn't the most efficient way to go about learning at scale. And so what we did was came up with a plan to digitize the majority of our learning and to put it onto a platform that we call Claims University. Now, learning technology, it was really 10 years ago. It's amazing how much has changed in 10 years. I know one was like, yep, absolutely. But back then, they weren't, they just out of the side of the LMS, that was like a big deal. There wasn't much. So, and everyone still had this expectation that learning what needed to be done specifically in the classroom. That was the only way it was going to happen. So getting our leaders to understand that there's some things that you can train on digitally, and then other things that need to be done in person. Getting the team that was used to, I mean, these were facilitators and folks who designed programs, but designed programs to be done in person, to change everybody's mindset to go from being in person to flipping the script and putting everything, the majority of everything online was really, really hard. But let me tell you something, like the magic truly happened because we were able to train more individuals faster than we ever had in the past. We were able to connect that learning from measurement perspective directly back to business KPIs and anticipated outcomes. We gamified it. We had leaderboards. We had challenge coins, we had competitions. I mean, you ran a gamut. So this Claims University gave these different businesses within AIG, these lines of businesses, an opportunity to have a voice in the learning space. And everybody ended up being engaged. And what happened as a result of that, what we learned from that experience, that digital transformation really, is that we were able to use what we learned there um, in order to do other things digitally across the organization. So that led to an enterprise-wide landing page that eventually was incorporated into our LMS at AIG, and it's still being used today. And then when I went over to USAA, the lessons I learned there transformed into a digital platform, learning platform used for our property and casualty employees that led to an onboarding platform. I mean, like this goes on and on and on. All really starting from just really being able to take a chance on the AIG side 10 years ago with that Claims University, which I understand is still alive and well today.
So I think, first of all, it's super impressive because it's not what I'm hearing from a lot of our customers and in general, Fortune 500 executives. Usually the
Hmm.
engagement in kind of like on-demand self-paced formats that can be like all the e-learning platforms or even your LMS, LXP is relatively low. Like they see relatively low engagement. So I wonder, what did you do there? So there was like this academy, but what happened there? Was it pre-recorded content? Was it live online cohort-based sessions? Like what did you have there?
Yeah, it was. That's a great point, Omar. And it was a combination, really, of courses and content material that they were used to getting in person, and this is for claims specifically. So it was technical content. They needed it to do their jobs and to be successful. So that engagement piece, there was a little bit of a stick there, right? A carrot and a stick because they needed it in order to do their job, right? This wasn't just about communication skills or critical thinking, although those were part of it too eventually. But so they really, really needed it in order to be successful. And then it was an expectation that they were going to learn. But the cool part is that we tried the best as best we could to make it fun. I remember getting a phone call from a leader who was really, really against this type of like transformation in the beginning. And he called me because he took some courses and his badges didn't show up on the leaderboard. And then he is like, all of a sudden, it's kind of like, okay, you went from like not even caring and being like a real, real tough one, to being one of the biggest supporters and kind of like, where's my recognition? But remember, this was also 10 years ago. This was 10 years ago. And you're right. We're finding, you got to find different ways, because you're not pushing this content to folks. You're trying to find ways to personalize it and pull it. And times have changed and continuing to evolve for sure.
So I think one thing that I'm getting from you is when you're designing a program in general, it's very important to understand like the existing like state of the union, right? So what you
Yes.
have there, when I'm translating it to my words, is basically you had kind of like something that they have to do that probably wasn't fun. It's kind of like the things like I need to do, and I apologize for my CDO in advance. I need to do like the cybersecurity training, right? And then
Okay.
it passed. Cyber and Karen is laughing because like
Come
all of
on,
us
it's
need to go
super
through that.
fun. What are you
Yeah, because
talking
we,
about?
we're ISO compliant and SOC 2 and everything, so we need to do these things.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, it's a pain. Like I don't like doing that. For me, I'm getting a private lesson from my CTO, which is a privilege of a CEO. But like
Yeah.
it's troublesome. And then if you would force me to an actual class around something that I have to do, but I don't really want to do, it's not fun. So you basically took a not ideal experience, like live experience, and you moved it to online. So now, again, the perk for you is, hey, you can run it maybe faster. You can do it at your convenience of your home and not like forcing you on a specific time. So just the format
Yes.
is friendlier. When again, we're not talking about leadership development. We're talking about more compliance or like technical claims training.
Yes.
And then you also made it funner with again the badges, leaderboards, and stuff like that. So you basically you change the format. So it doesn't necessarily mean it would work for anything, but it worked for your situation because your baseline was something that people just didn't like, and you made it friendlier. Now it's not that
Yes.
probably everyone wakes up in the morning and wants just to go to Cheryl's new academy, but you
No,
made their
probably
life easier,
not.
which is important. It's very important, and it's part of the learning cycle eventually to
Yes.
identify also these things because you need to do it. People need to do it. It's part of your compliance, right? You have like regulatory, yeah, and so I think it's brilliant.
Yes. But you know what we found too that and you know what, and I guess it depends. Every organization, even every line of business has its own personality, things that they love, don't love, what works, doesn't work. But we just figured that we realize that how you love to eat with your eyes. I know I eat with my eyes, right? Like if I see something yummy that looks yummy and I want part of it. We did the same thing with the learning and the content. High graphic designers, really talented instructional designers made things engaging and fun and gamified, like made it look sexy so that you want to actually engage with it even if you have to.
I think my follow-up question, maybe last question on this point is, what do you do when it's not mandatory? Like when it's something that is not part of your day-to-day, like you must do it. Like I need to do my cybersecurity training in order to
Mhm.
do my work. Do you think this format can still work, or then we would move more towards formats again, like a growth space, like a more human to human, more live, cohort-based, one-on-one, but things that are basically more personalized and engaging because eventually pre-recorded content is generic, right? It's not about
Mhm.
Cheryl, it's not about Karen, it's not about Omer.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I am, it may sound old school, but everything old is new again. Human beings, there's a way that we learn, right? And I'm a huge proponent of the 70-20-10 model, right? The majority of how we learn is through experiences, and then it has to happen with other people. And then that content, articles, videos, courses, that kind of stuff, that is 10%. And I say it over and over again that as a practice, we spend 90% of our time on the 10%, when really we should be spending the majority of our time on the 70 and the 20. And so that has evolved over time, right? In my last role, leading learning at USAA, one of my teams was and still is very, very engaged in what we call skill circles. And the skill circles are cool because, to your point, Omar, it takes that 10%, that content, and that becomes like just the start. So folks can asynchronously learn a particular skill. The first one that we did was storytelling with data. Had underwriters, analysts who understood all the data but couldn't tell the story to executives who need to understand what does all this actually mean at the end of the day. We put them together in a cohort, gave them content that they learned on their own asynchronously, and then brought them together so they can talk about it, learn from each other. They work with a leader who is facilitating the conversation, having, real time, here is this issue, here is this data, how do I tell the story? And then the 70% was going back out into the world and then doing the work and then coming back in and having more conversation about it. And so that has bled into beyond storytelling with data to critical thinking, coaching. You name the skill, you can put a circle around it. It has to be more than just the content. It's got to be the other people, whether that is a coach or some sort of facilitator, conversation together. And then you need to have those experiences we can go out and learn and then bring it back. So that's more modern, right? But the 70-20-10 has been around so long, but we still spend most of our time on just the 10, right? So
So you know what? It's a good caveat. Put the 10 aside because the 10 is very clear. How
yeah.
do you bring external programs that will cater mostly like to the 20? I understand, mostly to like the 70, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it like when you look at it, like the 70, is it only what's happening in the day-to-day work, like with your manager, with your peers, and so forth? Or it's something that you can basically embed external programs or external resources in order to support the 70? The 20, I understand.
Yeah, yeah. I think you can. You can expand that to building experiences that folks can have. I found that in my career with programs that will take you out of your particular role more and put you someplace else, right? As just like one example of many, where so now you're experiencing something on a day to day. But the key though is to make sure that if that person is in some sort of like, let's say, leadership development, program, and I'm head of underwriting today, but tomorrow I'm head of HR. You can't just make that person do the work. You still have to tie it back and be intentional about it. Otherwise, that person is just digging into the work and then not remembering and experiencing what they're supposed to be learning and how they're going to take that back, whether they end up staying in that role or moving back into another position. The skill building has to be intentional, can't just be by osmosis. Am I making sense there?
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
skill building needs to be, again, very connected to the flow of work. It needs to start in the flow of work and it needs to be
Yes.
applied in the flow of work. And it's kind of like circle. And this is how we look at it. Because when you think about our customers, when they onboard their participants to the platform, whether it's a
Right.
one-on-one or a cohort-based or internal mentoring, by the way, the first thing we do is we connect to their current business challenge, right? And then
Yes.
we have AI translating the business challenge to a skill. Then they're being matched with an expert in one of the formats. And then the real work, I would say, that is happening between the sessions. Because, okay, you're doing a session, you were getting inspired by, let's say, you're the expert, Cheryl.
Right.
And then we're coming back to the day to day. And then they're coming back to the session and then coming back to the day to day. But most of the work is starting basically with the day to day, and then it goes back. So
Right.
with
Yep.
the
Yep.
actual application. So I think it's an interesting caveat.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I agree with you. I agree with you. It's cool. I mean, learning is awesome. We're learning every day. but it's like when you actually take the time to sit down and reflect upon what it is that you've learned and then put that into practice the next day, that's when the magic happens, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's when you have those light bulb moments.
Yes.
But not all moments are light bulbs. So we're gonna take a sharp turn here, talking about
Okay.
the stuff that didn't quite work out as planned. Um, that can be sort of at a high level. Talk to me about that. But then I want to dig in and sort of double click into the lessons you learned from
Okay.
those sort of less than stellar performances or mistakes that happened.
Oh, those mistakes. Why are we always so afraid of the mistakes? Why are we afraid of the what they call the F word, failure? I'm a true believer that, some of the greatest things that have been invented in life have been as a result of mistakes. I'm a big, love of the Post-it note. And that was that was a very lucrative mistake for 3M. Um, I have my friend, a really good friend of mine, who has an adorable son. He's going to be a year old, coming up in a couple of weeks. And you know that saying, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. Well, I say when life gives you lemons, eat it. So this little adorable kid, when you give him a lemon, he just takes that lemon and he eats it. Doesn't make smiles, juice running down his face. It's like an awesome experience. And that's the kind of like energy that I like to create around, my team and the folks that I'm blessed to work with. I have to set the stage there, Karen and Omar, because a lot of times when folks think about, things that didn't work out well, it's always like this kind of like, it didn't work. And, all right, what lessons did we learn that we can use in the future? But at the end of the day, it doesn't feel good. I like to create that safe space where, growth and magic happens when you make the mistakes. And if you create an environment where people can feel like good about that, eat that lemon as opposed to make lemonade out of it. We all win. I remember it's going back a few years ago, in my last role, head of learning for USA. We were asked, by our most senior executives, to go down a journey of digital understanding, digital upskilling, digital maturity, and put a team together trying to figure out like some really like interesting, exciting, creative ways, innovative ways to get folks thinking about, Omar, what you said before about doing some required, learning, for your good, but try to make it fun along the way. And they put together like some awesome learning assets that we were all really super excited about. Had the support of my direct leader at the time, and then her direct leader. And then not too long before we were about to release it enterprise wide, leadership changed. And when the leadership changed, different philosophies, different ideas on how things should be done, um, different ideas and, concepts on branding and like that kind of thing. And, long story short, it wasn't green lighted to go out enterprise wide. And the team, I bet you, if anyone was watching this now who was a part of that team, will say like, "Why are you bringing this up, Cheryl? This was such a hurtful time." But at the same time, they learned so much because there were things that they created and did in order to get this content out to the enterprise that they had never done before. They pushed themselves in order to create, some really, really innovative and creative, content and experiences and ways for, you know, the layperson to understand what it means to be digitally mature. And the coolest thing is that even though that content didn't see the light of day enterprise wide, it did make its way, into our LXP, and there were some business units that embraced it and used it. At the end of the day, there's work that they're still doing to this day. They learned those skills when they were working on that project. So the lesson is, even if, so in my mind, they didn't make lemonade out of that situation, right? They're still eating that lemon to this day, but lemon in a good way. You don't even have to put any sugar on it. so that they're using it and learn from it. And the stuff that they're working on today, that's even better than it would have been if we didn't have that experience together. So,
And you know what? One thing I think I can guarantee to everyone who listens here, you will have leadership changes. This is something that happens so frequently in so
yes,
many companies, so many large companies. There is like change is the only constant. So you will have so many times that you worked on something really, really hard, and then just someone just like changed
that,
everything. And yeah, like just yeah, no, we're not doing that. We're course correcting. And I think the faster we adapt, basically the more successful we are, because you have to, like, no one else. If the CEO, like the CEO changed, this new CEO says something else,
yep,
like everything changed. Like, and now deal with it, and do not linger on, oh, but we had such a good plan, and like it was so good, and now I can do it. Okay, it changed. How can we course correct? How can we align with the new CEO? How can we understand what like is the new strategy? So I think
yeah,
actually, Karen, we can do a podcast about how to deal with change management, and it's a 30 minutes of growth, so we have 3 minutes probably. But yeah, I think it's a very good insight. It's important.
yeah. And Omar, you make such a great point because they're looking right at you, right? I mean, I know they were looking at me. Like, how is Cheryl gonna, how are you handling this news? If I was down in the doldrums and stomping my feet and moaning and groaning about it, then that would. But to your point, it's a part. It's the only thing we can count on is change. So what are you going to do with it, right? And it would be better for it ultimately, I believe. So
Yeah, I mean, literally, Omer said to me, we're going to fail. We're going to fail a lot. The question is, what do we do with what we learned?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Failure is
And a lot of
good.
the times it
It can
is,
be.
yeah. Listen, I've made mistakes, but ultimately, like, I've become smarter because of them, more efficient because of them. And I think that's
Absolutely.
the only lesson. If it stops you from moving, that's a failure, right? That's the
Exactly.
actual fail, not what happened, but what you do with it. I think that is how you measure success or failure. That's
Yep.
like sort of that's been sort of my moral of the story. But I do want to ask you, looking back, you like that segue? Looking
Yeah, I love
back,
that segue. You're smooth.
thank you. Uh, so if there's some advice you could give yourself, like knowing what you know now at sort of the start of your learning journey, what
hmm
advice would you give to yourself? What skills would you tell yourself to focus on?
Okay, so I don't know if you guys are Springsteen fans. One of the directors that I've worked with for a very long time, he is, and we talk about this all the time. And that's this notion that 1 plus 1 does not equal 2. 1 plus 1 equals 3, right? So Springsteen would talk about this. I think I can't remember what year it was. He was out there on stage and talking about when 1 plus 1 equals 3, that's when the magic happens. So it's not just about me as a leader or you, Karen, or you, Omar. It's about what happens collectively when everyone is together. When you create the space for it's like a running theme. We create the space for the challenges to happen, for obstacles to come over. When you give folks an opportunity to bring their authentic selves to work so that they can like spread their wings and fly and be who they are on a day-to-day basis. When you do those kind of things, working together as a team, then the magic happens. You're in the flow. I think way back in the day when I was first starting out, it was more about like, the work, getting the work done. And I'm a people person. You guys probably figured that part out. So it's always been about the people for me. But at the same time, it was a lot about the work. I have learned over the years, and especially where I sit right now, that at the end of the day, the magic makes the work happen. The work is going to happen. The results are going to be there. The initiatives are going to get done. But it's a journey that you go on and experiences that you create along the way that really make it worthwhile. And that becomes a stepping stone to greater things that are going to come over time. The power of the human spirit in this experience that we call life can never be underestimated in the work that we do. You know, everyone's talking about AI. I love AI. I embrace it. It's important. It's making my experience as a human being easier, I think, happier, and now I can focus on the things I really need to get done. You know, so 1 + 1 = 3 is something that I will always remember, and it's definitely something that I would tell my younger self back in the day.
Oh my God, I wish you could talk to my younger self back in the day. You always put such a smile on my face, Cheryl. I adore our conversations.
I always
I think
enjoy
that's
them
awesome
too.
advice. And I want to thank you. We hit the 30-minute mark right on time, so it's
Wow.
very impressive. Well done, you.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys too. Thanks. I enjoyed the conversation very much. Thanks for having me.